Hello everyone, Sandra here, and welcome to my Life and Channel update for May 2025. It feels real sudden, but there's a good reason for that. And that's because I've been gone a lot of this month, so it's felt weird. This begins right at the start of the month, technically the second, so not the first. Had a lovely draft at my LGS on the first, because we do it on Thursdays because we're weird, instead of doing it on Fridays because... Anyway, that's another entirely different thing. But yes, I enjoyed playing Magic, but then immediately I set out for a church retreat. My church likes to do an annual retreat where we get together, talk about stuff. This time we talked about community and community building, and the important things for that. One of the, I'd almost say it's a catchphrase or a motto that my pastor has, is that we move forward at the speed of trust, that like relationships move forward at the speed of trust, and how important it is to build trust in relationship to do that. But we talked about a lot of really important things in that, emotions, empathy, connecting with people, we have the way that our retreats work, I think, is really good. We have a few sessions, so that first Friday when people arrive, there's an evening session, and then on Saturday there's a morning session, and then there's a chunk of free time where people can figure out some sort of activity that they're going to do together. So for example, I played games with people. One of my friends, I played Magic with him, and then I also got introduced to an interesting game called Scout that I've actually picked up a copy of, and if I had been thinking ahead of time and planning, I would have grabbed it, but it is not in arm's reach. But it's an interesting card game that has similarities to like a rummy type game where you're doing sets and runs, but it's a bit more complicated than that, where you're basically trying to accumulate points and get and empty your hand, and once your hand is empty, whoever empties their hand first sort of like wins. Like the round ends at that point, and then you count points. Excuse me. But that game was a lot of fun. But then we have an evening session, and then we have our Sunday morning session, and then we go home in the afternoon. So that's kind of like the raw structure. So one of the sessions was really focused around like the language of emotion, like how do we talk about emotions and the importance of emotions. And then another one was about like communication styles, and then we had one about conflict. The sessions were kind of like two-parters, where like we talked about one topic and then another topic. So like if I remember correctly, so there's like 8 parts in over 4 sessions. Like we were talking about communication styles and the ways that can create conflict, but also just like conflict resolution and working through conflict. And so it was really good, like community building and relationship building stuff. Is really about relationship building stuff. So that was really good. But then on that Sunday, like I have like half a day at home or whatever, and then immediately Monday morning, that was Monday the 5th, my family went to the Midwest to visit relatives. So we visited some of my mom's siblings and my dad's family. So spent some time in Indianapolis and near where I grew up in northern Indiana. So I grew up in Elkhart County, which is along the Michigan border. And so we went to some things there. Did a lot of shopping. What I have discovered is I don't care for shopping. Like, I'm happy to go in a store. I will take 5 minutes to look at what they have if it's a smaller store. And then I have seen all of the things and I'm done. I'm ready to move on with life. Like maybe 5 to 10 minutes is good for me. And other people are like, I'm happy to look at everything in detail for like half an hour. And I'm like, I am so ready to be done with this. So that was like a roughly 10, 11 day trip. So we spent some time up there. We did see some old houses, the Beardsley House and Ruthmere, which were really interesting to go visit, get tours of. In particular, I found it very interesting from thinking about how I might use the knowledge that I picked up for world building. So like something that stood out to me from the Beardsley House, for example, this was sometime in the 1800s that it was built, is they were very like, okay, here are the parts of the house where visitors are going to be, and we're making those extra fancy compared to the parts of the house that we normally interact in. So the visitors don't go into those private areas that are less fancy. They've spent less money on them. So you can really see how like there's the superficiality of wealth and aristocracy, right? Where they are presenting themselves in a way where it's like, oh, imagine the rest of the house is like this, but it's not, right? And it's still nice, but it's not quite that. The other thing that was really interesting was the way that they were conscious about separating sources of fire as much as they could to try to mitigate potential damages of loss of control over a fire. So like the way that the house was set up, the kitchens were sort of separated from the rest of the house in terms of like the positionality. Like they're not underneath or integrated within the main part of the body. They're kind of a separate wing almost, where like it's still part of the house. It's not like you go outside or something, but it's kind of back a ways where they have more space between that and the rest of the house, and it's much less it is less fancy. There we go. That's the phrase. It's less fancy back there. So if it does go up in smoke, they would have wasted less money. Ruthmere is a much larger, like a proper mansion. And it had a lot of really fancy things going on. But they also had fire mitigation measures where it's like, oh, this is a literal firewall where it's like made of stone and they have metal doors. So that way, if part of the house catches on fire, they can try to prevent the other half from going up. It's just very interesting seeing how, oh yes, we are using fire to light and heat our house. We're doing very practical things. Now, we're still using fire to heat our homes because the gas companies have their talents in people. But, so we have a furnace, but that's still like doing some segregation stuff. But we have better understanding of how to control that and all those sorts of things than they necessarily did, because like we're able to pipe the hot air around our house and the flame is kept separate. It's kept contained. Rather than using like fireplaces, for example. So it's just interesting to see some of that stuff and to think about some of those things. And then we also just spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who's in her 90s. I think she's 91 right now, and or about that. So it was interesting. We spent some time talking with her just about her memories of things and some of her history of stuff. And it is interesting just hearing about, technological change that she's seen, but also just family history stuff. So that was nice. It was nice to spend some time with family there. Unfortunately, I think one of my uncles was sick on a family gathering we had on Sunday, May 11th, on Mother's Day. We had kind of a big family gathering. And I think I caught something from him, probably. Seems like the most likely candidate. Because, day or two later, I started coming down with something. So we went to the end of the trip. We went to Ohio to visit my mom's sister, so my aunt. We spent some time there, and so we set out on a Tuesday, and I was starting to feel it kind of enough that I'm like, I should wear a mask around my immunocompromised aunt. And then on Wednesday, I was just like, I didn't sleep well that night. I had some aches, and I don't know if it was a cold or like potentially COVID or the flu. If it was COVID or the flu, I feel like it was probably kind of mild. If it was a cold, it was kind of like bad for like that one day. But I've still, even since then, it's been 2 weeks? I'd have to think about that. I didn't do any sort of the math calculations for that, but I have definitely been having problems with too much mucus production still. Like everything else seems to have cleared up, but the mucus is really a problem. It's been impeding my sleep, and it's been a real nuisance. I'm not doing a whole lot of coughing at this point, but anyway, so on that Wednesday, a lot of other people went out while I just hung out at my aunt's place, blowing my nose, and I did watch the first 12 episodes of Delicious in Dungeon because we don't have Netflix. I've been watching stuff on Crunchyroll, but we don't have Netflix. But my aunt does, so I watched that while they were out looking at a glass museum. And to give a brief summary of my thoughts on Delicious in Dungeon, seems fine. If you like cooking anime, it's a great blend of like cooking anime and like fantasy dungeon crawling type stuff. I'm very medium on cooking anime. Like it's fine, but it kind of can feel like a bit much at times. I don't really care about it. So for me, it was fine. I wouldn't mind watching the other half at some point, but like it didn't rank super highly. It's like, this is fine. So that's my opinion on it. Other people might like it more. Maybe they're much more into the cooking thing. I mean, I guess I feel kind of similarly about it as I do with the isekai with the guy who can buy food from a market, like a digital market, and cooks food. And like, yeah, that one had similar, like, this does some interesting stuff, but like it's all about cooking delicious food. And it's like, okay, sure. I mean, I enjoy cooking, but like, I don't know. Those sorts of shows are just that cooking element. I'm dwelling on this point too long. Moving on. So the trip back was not actually that bad, given that I was like, I wore a mask the whole time I was flying back too. But well, except for the moments where I was like temporarily removing it to like drink or blow my nose or whatever. But so I definitely felt wonkiness in my ears as we were descending. And then had a really interesting experience in SeaTac. So, because I live in the greater Seattle area. And so as we flew back into SeaTac, it turns out SeaTac can't expand to accommodate the amount of air traffic going through it. Like it needs to be a bigger airport apparently. But there's just nowhere to expand to. And so they get, I think the guy said somewhere around like 30 to 50, I forget the exact number, but like flights per day that don't get a gate. So instead of being able to, I want to say dock, that doesn't seem like, saying docking with an airplane sounds kind of wonky, but you don't have a gate to dock at, basically. So what they do in those cases is, instead of just deplaning, apparently is the term, I would have used disembark, but whatever. Deplaning sounds like an unpleasant side effect that's happening to you somehow. That's how it sounds to my ears. But anyway, they brought us to an area of the tarmac, and we got like, we went down a ramp. It had like some switchbacks, and it was like this cool like contraption that went up next to the plane, and it was covered, which was good because it was raining, but it was like a couple of switchbacks down to lower the grade. And then we got onto the shuttle bus. We're the second shuttle bus of two, because we always fly in the back of the plane. And so with that, we got on a shuttle bus, and we're slowly taken to a different part of the airport, where we like walked in a back entrance from the tarmac. Is still considered within like secured area. But we're back by, if anybody's been to SeaTac, there's these like trains things that take you to different concourses. The airport's weirdly like structured in that way. But these shuttle buses took us near one of those, and then we went to baggage claim, and it's under construction. It felt really wonky inside SeaTac, where it felt like part of a video game level, actually. That was like because of the under construction stuff. Like, you know, those like sci-fi things where they're like, we need to make this feel gritty and grounded by adding construction. That's what it felt like. That's the best way to describe it. It felt very strange, very weird. Almost kind of, yeah, it didn't feel like real life. It felt like, oh, this belongs in like a movie set, or like an amusement park, or in a video game or something, at least to me. Anyway, we got our baggage, we got home, everything went fine from that standpoint. We picked up milk. I was very happy to sleep in my own bed that night. The trip, I have really mixed feelings. Like, it was good to see people. It was also like, I was feeling really stretched, like from, I don't know, introverted is what I would say it was, but I don't think that feels like a bit of a reductionist approach. It's just, I didn't have my own space, and I'd been away from that for between the retreat and that. Like, yes, I had like, half a day, at home, but that half day was spent kind of like transitioning from one trip to the other. And then, so I went from that to, it's from the retreat straight into this trip. So I was gone from home from like basically the 2nd to through the 15th is kind of the way that you can think about it, because I left not long after getting up on the 2nd. And so that was like almost 2 weeks basically around that. And it's just a long time, but it's not just being away from my environment in a weird one. And let me tell you, being in like 4 different sleeping situations over the course of that period of time made it very clear that it takes a night to adjust to a new bed. Like, I would typically sleep terribly the first night in any of our given locations, and then like the rest of the nights were fine. But I just had to acclimate first. But I feel like I've lost the plot. Oh yeah. So being away from my own space and being able to do my own things, like being away from that for so long was a little bit of a part of it, because I didn't feel like I had a place to retreat to. But another part of it is just your being in constant relational contact means that all of the like, and it's not just regular relational contact, right? It is heightened, it is intensified, because there's these additional stressors of like, oh, we're trying to do things or whatever, or I'm having to the emotional endurance necessary to engage in activities that other people want to do that maybe I was done with 20 minutes ago, because we're still shopping, and I'm done with shopping, but we're still shopping. We're still looking at stores, and it's like, I am done looking at stores. I've looked through it. There's nothing here that grabs my attention all that much that I would want to stare at for another 20 minutes, and I'm ready to move on. I know I'm harping on that point, but it was something that I really felt by the end of that like northern leg, because we spent a lot of time just like looking at stores, I feel like, as part of that part, and that just really wore on me a lot. And like, it's something too where I'm introspecting. I'm like, okay, this is something I don't personally care for, and I'm figuring out why. Of like, okay, it's not that I don't like looking at goods, it's that I don't like looking at goods for that long. I'm done already, so I'm basically twiddling my thumbs in some regards, waiting for everyone else to be done. And my feet are getting tired of like walking around and everything at that point. It's like, okay, I've looked over these things. I'm not looking for anything in particular. It's not like I'm having to budget carefully so I can play Magic and interact with people over that thing that I enjoy. So it's not like I'm going to be spending a bunch of money on random whatevers. And so it's like, and even if I was going to be buying something, I'd be fairly quick about figuring out, okay, what am I actually interested in, right? And so, like, whereas in contrast, for example, my sister is very deliberative. She needs to, if she is interested in something, she needs to spend a long time deciding whether or not she actually wants to get it. And part of that's her perfectionism. I'm not a perfectionist. It's one of my superpowers is I'm not a perfectionist. I'm a completionist, but I'm not a perfectionist. Those are two different things. And so, like, my sister will spend a lot of time trying to evaluate, okay, is this the perfect choice sort of thing? And that can take a lot of deliberation on her part, which is something that's just not how my brain works. And so it can be frustrating dealing with that. And so, like, all of that shopping was something that really wore on me. But also, like, there's when you get to places on time, navigation. And so there's a lot of like my parents having their typical, their communication styles or the way that they approach communication often can create moments of conflict. And that's something that also, like, okay, I'm having to put up with this, and I wish I could just get them to both, I don't know, not get caught up in the conflict part and just get to the, like, finishing actual communication part. And they get there, but it's just, you know, I'm not normally in that all of the time. And I felt like the parts of my relationship with my family where there is something that rubs me the wrong way or that causes some irritation, it's just I'm being pushed into that, like, all of the time with the trip. And so I definitely was feeling that as well by the end. I mean, by halfway through, if I'm being realistic. So, I mean, but it was also good to see my family. So I go into a lot more detail. I wrote up a big old trip report for my Patreon. I mean, it is paywalled, but if you want more details, I go into some more details there. I did spend some time beginning to replay Pokemon White during that trip, and like on the flight back, I spent like the entire flight playing Pokemon White. I just liked the season mechanic. That's what I remember is I really liked the seasons mechanic in Pokemon White, and so I was wanting to replay Gen 5 because of that. Pokemon White I have White and then Black too, I think, because I made poor choices, not realizing quite how they worked. And so I was enjoying, like I'd done a bunch of work to prepare it, to like move all the Pokemon off of it and prepare in advance for that. But so anyway, I wanted to replay Pokemon White, and so I've been doing so, but I forgot how linear that game feels, but also like I wish they weren't trying to force me. Like the Pokemon variety feels like it takes a long time to really start taking off. I think this is one of the things I've been thinking about Pokemon games a little bit because of playing that. Of like, one of the things that was nice about the openness of Gen 9, because I played Violet. I didn't play Galar, the Gen 8, but I played Violet. But one of the things that's nice is like when I feel like I'm able to get some variety, because it felt like with White in the start, like everything, all the wild Pokemon felt like they were Lillipup, Patrat, or Pidove. And I'm just like, can I encounter anything else? And like it does eventually start to open up. It's not necessarily a Pokemon that I'm that excited about. So I was just thinking about like how do you pace what Pokemon are available is something that's an interesting question. I really think the Guild Wars 1 model would work super well for Pokemon. This is something of an aside, but it's just a design thing that I've thought about before. I've probably talked about it before. But the Guild Wars 1 model is there's the standalone campaigns. So you'd buy Guild Wars Prophecies, and you'd get access to the Tyria region and that story, and you can get your skills from there. Some are exclusive to that one, and then there's factions, and it has its own story. But you can take characters from that start in either into the other. And I think that sort of model would work really well with Pokemon, where it's like, oh, this is a standalone game that you can play through, but you can bring your Pokemon from one world region into the other and play through that one. One of the things that makes that work with Guild Wars 1 is the level cap is really low, and the basically after once they finally figured out what they're doing and came out with factions, they're like, okay, the real game starts once you're max level. And so the tutorial is just to get you to maximum level, and then from there, the game begins. That way, people who come in from the other, from Prophecies, which was the first one, it was just called Guild Wars back in the day, but their character is just ready to go. And yeah, you come in advantage because you have more skills available to you, but there's unique skills in each area. So as you go on, you can like kind of bring stuff from other areas. I think that sort of model would work super well with Pokemon, where it's like, oh, here's Pokemon Kanto, here's Pokemon Johto, here's Pokemon Hoenn, here's Pokemon Galar, here's Pokemon Alola, all of different world regions where it's like, oh, okay, you can play through a game that takes place in this region, but then you can take your team from there and go to another region and play through that. I think something like that could be really cool. Figuring out how to balance it would be really tricky. But if it was something where I don't know, I also would really love a Pokemon game that has multiple save files and allows you to do a sort of New Game Plus, where you can basically start a Pokemon game with an egg, like from another save file on that same Pokemon game, as it were. I think that would be really neat. But anyway, so I started replaying that. I've also got the itch to replay Subnautica. So I've been replaying Below Zero because I like that one a little bit better. I think the regions are a little bit more interesting. I do have Predator's aggression turned all the way off, but I like that they gave allow you to set up a custom game, so I can choose something other than full creative, and just kind of have fun with that. So I've been enjoying replaying that some. I am looking forward to Night Rain coming out in a couple of days. I was wanting to stream between getting back and recording this, but just the timing worked out better for me to just record this now. So we'll see if I get some streams in the next couple of days. I'd like to stream at least sometime this month in theory, but between like being sick and still like catching up, like when I got back from that trip, I was still like having to acclimate back into things and back into my life, and I was spending a bunch of time working on writing up that the Dear Patrons report for my Patreon on the trip and all of that. So a couple of other things also come to mind as I mentioned that. During the trip, my sister and I read The Man Who Broke Capitalism, a book about Jack Welch. So we took turns reading chapters of that to each other. My dad wanted to leave it with his mother, so we did do that, but that meant my sister and I wanted to get it read, finish reading it first. And that was a really interesting book. It basically goes into how Jack Welch ushered in what people call late-stage capitalism, what the book calls Welchism. Kind of this idea that employees are a cost instead of an asset, where previously they're seen as an asset, and then it starts seeing them as a cost. The relentless pursuit of the quarterly earnings and the stock price, like how much is a share worth, and all of that. Putting shareholders first as like the primary stakeholder. CEO compensation also ballooned and stuff. So Jack Welch was the CEO of General Electric, which was founded by Edison. I think it used to be the Edison Electrical Company or something like that, or Edison Electric, and it was changed to General Electric at some point, but I don't remember the history for sure. But he became CEO in 1981, following the stagflation of the 1970s. People were looking for something different. And then he retired in 2001, just before September 11th. And his ways of thinking have had a huge influence on the business world, and arguably not for the better. So like he was, before GE was a place where people could work their whole careers, and it was like a lot of loyalty to their employees, and he's like waging a war against that loyalty, against loyalty to employees. Like the only thing a company owes their employees is their most recent paycheck. Was a big fan of layoffs, had this thing called rank and yank, where he'd rank employees and fire the bottom 10%. And just created an environment of fear and whatnot. And corner-cutting financial wizardry really heralded an age of mergers and acquisitions, where he'd buy up companies, extract everything he could from them, and sell them for parts, things like that. Did not invest in the future of the company, didn't really invest as much in innovation or any of that sort of stuff, and then used financial wizardry and to make the quarterly reports always happen. It was also enabled by lots of other things, though, like Reagan's policies made it possible for him to do some of the stuff he did. The approach of the FTC to the acquisitions and mergers and all that as well. So there's a lot. It was a really interesting read. For anybody who complains about late stage capitalism, learning about Jack Welch and what he's done might be useful, so you know what to blame. It sounds like capitalism, or like the way that the economy worked before that, was better for people, but there were some other problems that were like metastasizing over time. So there's definitely, economies are really hard to sort of think of, just because they are complex interlocking mechanisms, and changes in one place create ripple effects in others. But where we're at is not a good spot, so we're gonna need to figure out what to do about it, and that's not my purview. I have my own ideas, but it's not my purview. So anyway, other things that have happened, I don't know, there's lots of like, it's just been playing catch up after getting back, has definitely felt like a lot. I've continued to do some work on story prep for a story that I want to write. Somewhat inspired by So I'm a Spider, So What, because I really, really like that series. And I don't know. It feels like the month has been really short, in part because there's still like 5 days left, 5-6 days, depending upon how you count it. But also just because the first half of the month was taken up with travel and stuff. It just makes the month feel different. It feels like the way my brain compartmentalizes those memories, is it feels like it puts them in a different existence in some regards, because like my life there is not my life here, and all that. So anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up there. I thank you all very much for watching. Like I said, this month has mostly been travel, but there's been a few other things that have gone on as well. And I'm looking forward to Night Rain. I'm not planning on streaming Night Rain, but I am planning on playing it. So, and I'm really looking forward to the Final Fantasy Magic set, but that doesn't come out until June. So, until next time, everyone, take care and goodbye.